So, as I'm sure everyone has seen, Spirit Airlines, is the second largest private employer in Broward County, where I live, or was the second largest private employer, I must say, and one of the larger private employers in Orange County has gone out of business. 17,000 employees. More than half of those were in the state of Florida. They were based in Dania Beach, where Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport is. They've gone out of business. It is a tragedy for our economy here in Florida, and so many people have lost their jobs. Now, it is very typical of Republicans to politicize anything and everything, and maybe it's just a coincidence, although it really isn't. Since airline deregulation, we've had a number of major airlines. Spirit is one of the largest airlines in history to go under in the U.S. We've had a number of major airlines go out of business. They have all gone out of business during Republican administrations, whether it was Reagan, Bush 1, Bush 2, or now Trump. There's been consolidation in the industry that's taken place, mergers that took place in the Obama years, in particular, but a few a few, actually nothing of significance in the Clinton years, but. This is something that has happened over and over again under Republican presidencies, and oftentimes triggered by the cost of oil going up because of military actions in the Middle East. So that's point one. But the other point I want to address here is that the Republicans today have decided they have three bogeymen, and they're all on message. They're always all on message. We know the three bogeymen are men and women, I should say: Elizabeth Warren, Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg. So Elizabeth Warren tweeted something which is legally accurate, and I have Republicans filling up my timeline on social media saying Elizabeth Warren blocked the merger between Spirit and JetBlue. Yeah, I know a U.S. senator can block a merger, right? That's part of her constitutional responsibility. There was a DOJ lawsuit filed. A judge sided with DOJ. Why did Merrick Garland and the DOJ file that lawsuit? Let me explain this. First off, Spirit's executives, who are highly paid for a reason, they had, I think, the best CEO in the airline industry in Ben Baldenza, who had to step down in 2016 for health reasons. He's since passed away. Spirit was the most profitable airline in the United States per dollar spent in that era, like 2013, 2014, 2015. When Obama was president, they were doing the best. Best run airline, most successful airline from a profit standpoint. People didn't like how they did business. They didn't like the experience. That's fine. But they were well run. But they had some competent executives after that. Those competent executives, when Spirit began to run into financial trouble in 2020 and 2021 during COVID, sought a merger with Frontier Airlines, which is also a similar ultra low cost carrier with a similar operational footprint, and it would have created synergies to make a larger ULCC, and it would have kept fares down, and it would have passed antitrust muster. They recommended this to the board of Spirit. JetBlue came in with a hostile takeover. JetBlue, an airline that is one of the most operationally unsound businesses in America. I love the experience on JetBlue, by the way, when you fly them, but you have to get on the airplane. So getting through the airport terminal and getting onto an airplane with JetBlue is an experience unlike a negative experience, unlike that of flying any other airline in the United States. So the executives saw the JetBlue offer as a hostile takeover, which would cost jobs, because all JetBlue wanted was the A320 aircraft Spirit had, and wanted to eliminate a competitor specifically in Orlando and Fort Lauderdale, the two Florida markets we're talking about, so that they could raise airfares. Spirit's board, against the wishes of the executives, because a lot of them were shareholders and they were looking for a quick cash out, take the hostile takeover, reject the executive recommended merger with Frontier, which would not have faced that sort of DOJ scrutiny and would have created synergies, would not have cost jobs. The combined JetBlue Spirit carrier, I'm convinced, would have gone out of business as well. And airfares The airfare, the low airfares you may have enjoyed the last 2 or 3 years, they would have been hiked 2 or 3 years ago if that merger had gone through and if Merrick Garland and DOJ had not challenged it, and if Elizabeth Warren and Pete Buttigieg had, well, Elizabeth Warren in particular had not backed that. So, and operationally, it never would have worked. It never would have worked. And airfares would have spiked up. The reason we have antitrust laws in this country is to protect consumers, to protect the ordinary Joes, not to enable shareholders or stockholders to stuff their pockets, which is what the Spirit JetBlue merger would have done. And JetBlue, who is in position to pick up the wake of Spirit's fall, pick up the pieces in Fort Lauderdale. Looks like in Orlando they're not going to. It looks like actually what they're going to do is they're going to move resources from Orlando to Fort Lauderdale. So someone else will pick up the pieces. It might be Frontier, the other airline we're talking about here. Pick up the pieces in Orlando. Because Fort Lauderdale and Orlando were Spirit's two biggest bases. Very much a Florida airline, as I think most of you guys know. Because they're still in business, they're able to pick up the pieces. The merged carrier would not, they would have taken on such a debt load. This is another thing to understand. JetBlue's debt burden is huge at this point. They're teetering with bankruptcy themselves, and this will relieve some pressure on them, Spirit being gone. But taking on the additional debt to merge with Spirit very much would have thrown them into bankruptcy by now, especially with the raising oil prices. Because Spirit did have a plan to exit bankruptcy. They were living on the edge, admittedly, but that got blown up by starting a war with Iran and the oil price going on, and JetBlue going up. JetBlue, Frontier, apparently maybe one or two other airlines. I know American's in very bad shape also, are living kind of closer to the edge now because of the rising oil prices. United, Delta, Allegiant, maybe Southwest are healthy. That's it in the industry right now. Southwest, it's hard to tell. The other three are healthy. American is not healthy. American is in a lot of trouble, for those of you who don't know that. Now, of course, they have much bigger scale and they have a big better ability to get loans and to continue to accumulate debt. They're highly in debt, so they may be they may be in trouble soon. An airline that big won't fail, but we'll see what happens with that. Point here is Republicans all sing from the same song sheet, and they have these talking points today. Oh, it was Elizabeth Warren. It was Pete Buttigieg. It was Joe Biden. Tomorrow it might be Obama. It was Hillary Clinton. Oh my goodness. It's Jimmy Carter's fault. This is what they do every time something happens, and they are really well coordinated, and they sing from the same hymn sheet. So it's important people push back on that. People who are knowledgeable, people who live here in Florida, people who know the airline business, people who know the history of Spirit Airlines, which because it was a local Broward County business, it was my favorite airline. I will say that. I mean, I worked there at one time, but that's not the only reason. They were the local hometown airline, and they're gone now. So we don't have an airline to be partisan towards if you live in South Florida. But so I know the history of the business really well. It's almost like when you have a sports team you root for, you know everything that goes on with that sports team. I know everything that goes on with Spirit Airlines, went on with Spirit Airlines. I don't know everything that goes on with American Airlines or United Airlines. So I think it is important to understand what is being put out there is highly politicized. What Sean Duffy is saying is highly politicized. What Evan Power and the Republican Party of Florida is putting out there is highly politicized. And they have decided to make it a partisan political issue because they know if you just let the business press cover it, if you just let the mainstream media cover it, you just let the local news channels in South Florida, in Central Florida, and in other places, Detroit area where Spirit was pretty big, Baltimore, Philly, those places, cover it, it's going to look like a major business failure on Trump's watch, which it is, and on DeSantis's watch, which it is. So, although it is one of DeSantis's best buddies, Ken Griffin, who ultimately I think made the choice to pull the plug because the conditions Trump He was the largest bondholder in Spirit. It's been interesting to see Ken Griffin's evolution, right? Because he's a partisan Republican, moved his business to Florida during COVID because of the nastiness of blue states and all that nonsense that he talked about. He still kind of likes Trump on the anti-woke stuff, but he is he's become openly hostile to Trump's market interventionism. And he's been public about that. He went and met with Kathy Hochul a week or two ago about keeping some jobs in New York City, not moving them all to Miami, because of kind of seeing what Trump has done. It's not necessarily a reflection on DeSantis, it's a reflection on Trump. But yeah, so that's the situation.